Hi, welcome back again. We're here with Amber. Amber, tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do.
Hi, I'm Amber Hawley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and multi-business owner. And I have the My Biz Bestie podcast and the Couples Fix podcast, and where I help people with their relationships online without sacrificing their business.
Excellent. Well, you have been absolutely slaying it on Facebook and doing all these great interviews with people and all these resources that you're sharing that are really useful and helpful. I don't know if it's just because I'm online more and I'm noticing more, or have you really ramped up your efforts?
She did.
I did.
Okay.
I did. And now maybe some people will actually believe me. I was like, I moved last year across the country, and I kind of went into this hibernation mode where I was doing the very bare minimum just to like keep, my businesses afloat, but really not stepping it up. And I this year I started like, okay, now I'm feeling the momentum, I'm feeling to get started. And so I had started making small steps, but literally when this happened, that kind of kicked me in the butt. And for many reasons. One is I wanted to be of service. Like I think feeling useful like helps me deal with stress and what's going on. And I felt like, I know some amazing people. I want to have some great conversations to help people. So it definitely has ramped up.
That's us through. Sorry, that's what I was going to ask, because you are a therapist. Like, did you feel like the call of like, oh, they really need my help now? Like, I really need to be of service, like 100% now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a combination of things. I mean, and I think one of the pieces of advice that probably you've heard throughout time is like, when we help others, it helps us. And so it's one of those things, and it is my vocation, right? Like I love helping clients, but yeah, all of it. And so I just felt that need to like, okay, I just need to put myself out there so I kind of impulsively decided to do this video series. So it's not even like I had organized a summit or had this like grand idea of what it was going to look like. I'm like, let me like reach out to some of the cool people I know who are really smart and talk about these different areas of our lives that we can kind of, think about as far as like, how do we cope with all of this?
Right.
Absolutely. So how has that impacted your business? I mean, are you seeing returns already? And I mean, of course, the service piece, like you said, I think that's something that Juliette and I share with doing this, talking to entrepreneurs. It's, you really want to help, and whatever your gifts are, whatever you can do to help it during this time, you really do feel that call, like you said. But yeah, what impact are you seeing all these extra efforts make?
Yeah, well, I mean, just the increased visibility has brought some new opportunities, and as well as clients. So I've absolutely seen, a change in how things are, and some really cool opportunities. And it was really interesting because right before all of this kind of went down, I was having this feeling of like, I'm newer to Instagram because I'm a Facebook person, and and I was like, I know I need to do Instagram, but I had shared a few things, but it really wasn't about therapy. And I had this awareness of like, I'm not actually sharing anything about my psychological experience or background at all. So that's interesting. So I was having that awareness like right before. And the funny thing is, I say like, everything I do is in a room with people, like with my clients. So nobody sees it. It's not like, there's other things that other industries where you can really see what's happening. And so I was like, oh, I need to be putting that out there so people can understand what is it like to work with, a therapist or with me specifically. So I think I had that thought, and that's where it was like, Okay, start putting that out there. And I think now people are like, oh yeah. So I started having a lot more people reaching out as far as like, oh yeah, the therapist. That's right. She's not just funny and amazingly talented. Yes, she's not just this clever girl who can do everything. She also does therapy. Or coaching. It's now coaching because I can't do therapy across state lines.
Oh my gosh, too funny. So with your regular clients or your that you've had before all this happened, how are you helping them to cope with this, and what are you seeing what issues are kind of popping up for people? I actually do another podcast with my boyfriend, and we talk to a therapist that works with mentally ill people, and how they're seeing so much regression already, and backward sliding, and just because all the resources are available or in person and doing things telehealth wise and all that. But how are you helping your clients get through this right now?
Well, I mean, and I think that's why I thought of I call them the discussions, because again, it's not like an organized summit. I think it's kind of the similar thing of, I'm seeing it in a lot of people. And my clientele is mostly like entrepreneurs, or I call them high achieving couples or individuals. So I'm dealing with people who are professionals or really high functioning. But absolutely, I'm seeing people like have those old triggers come up, especially if they have a history of trauma, or there's just a lot more anxiety. And even if you personally feel like secure, you feel like, okay, financially I'm not being too impacted, or I'm not being impacted at all, because, some industries are thriving, but you're feeling this collective anxiety and stress that everybody's feeling. I mean, I think it really varies. So that's the thing with the individual clients, but I think it's just normalizing it, kind of talking about it, reminding ourselves of, what we do to cope, because, what people do that works for them is different. But you're right. I absolutely am seeing people, I call them checkups or tune-ups. They're calling in to kind of like, hey, can I schedule an appointment? Like, I need a tune-up. Like, I just need to talk it out. Because for a lot of people, especially if you're somebody who's very, got it together and type A and high functioning, most of the people in your life are coming to you and relying on you to be the strong one, right? Mm-hmm. And so for those people, it's like, where did they go? And so that gives them the outlet, being able to talk to me. So I think a lot of it is just normalizing. And, for some of my people, it's like, okay, you need to slow it down, because, their coping is like to do, but they're burning themselves out. And then I have other people who are feeling so down, they can't rally. And so it's like, okay, you need to get outside a little bit, so it really depends on what's kind of showing up for people. Yeah. But I think it's nice to hear, like these little reminders, because we all do it. I do it too. Like, I'm like, okay, I haven't been outside in 2 days. Like, I had to go sit outside. I made myself go sit outside for an hour yesterday, because I've been very busy, like I've had a lot of things to do work-wise. So
I've seen that. I've seen a little bit of that, quite a bit of, since most of my network here are business owners, and when I'm like, oh, we got to do all this, and I'm like, no, I mean, you could, but you don't have to, because in 2 days it's gonna hurt you. Like if you would normally burn, and not only that, you're already going through anxiety and stress, and then you're adding overdoing things. It might not really help you to actually relax, but like you said, it's just a way of, if I'm busy, I don't have to think about what's going on outside.
And that's the thing. Yeah. And you got to figure that out for yourself, because sometimes the distraction is really useful. Oh, yeah. And then sometimes you're like, well, because I've done that, where I had a week where I just was killing it in the house, not in business, but in the house. And I was getting a lot of work stuff done, and I did all this stuff because for me, like, my environment being organized and clean really makes me feel at peace.
Right. So was that when you were setting up your office? Was that it?
Oh no, that was January. I mean, I feel like I have 3 young children. Like, constant cleaning is always, like, there's always something to clean and organized. Yeah. But this was after the I started sequestering myself like in the beginning of March, because I had come back from a trip from Florida and said, I'm just going to self-isolate. That was my last trip. And So, and then it officially happened later. So I don't even remember when it was official or when I just decided I should do it. But yeah, I had that. But then I also had days where I was like, I am not getting out of my pajamas and I am just going to watch movies all day. And so like literally I was like, I will feed people if I have to, if they can't feed themselves. But I'm watching Marvel and I am, you know, like sitting on the couch. Yeah. And so I think it's just, you got to figure out like, what is, you know, I feel like every day you wake up and you're like, okay, like what is my energy today?
Yeah, how am I
and
feeling?
If it's low, like what are the things I have to do? And even some of my has tos, I don't get done, to be honest. Like, you know, things come up. And so, and then, you know, and then there's days where like, I feel it, I have good energy, I'm ready to go. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I do a little extra, you know?
I've definitely had some of those days too. That's why I posted, I'm like, I feel like I'm bipolar a little bit for the past month or so, even though normally I kind of, and when I just go with the feelings, if I'm like, for the past 2-3 days, I've been going on the parkway for 2-3 hours, just driving around and checking out the because it's been beautiful days outside. So and that just being and just doing that, because if not, you get filled with. I haven't really been stressed. I've been more anxious than anything.
I can't tell the difference anymore. Which is which?
Yeah, well, and anxiety is kind of like we would say it's a little more future oriented, but it's I think it's just a manifestation of stress, because as like if we pass this threshold, then it's like everything makes us anxious or just makes us feel that way. And that's the thing, it's kind of diffuse, right? Like you can't really pinpoint like what is it.
Right.
But I love the drive thing.
I think that overly anxious eventually derives to being stressed, because you can't, like, it just goes underneath your skin, and it's just like part of both, you know. It just, to me, it starts with anxiety, so I prefer to just change gears, go for a drive or something, then I come back and I feel a little bit refreshed. Even if I don't get to do anything that day, the next day I feel much better, because I just let it go.
Well, and that's what you have to do, because that's the thing. If you lower your stress, like it's not like one thing, like, oh, I did that thing and magically I feel great. Like for everything is better, you know, no more COVID. But you lower the stress and then you go below the threshold and you don't feel that like anxiety anymore, you know, and hopefully like you sleep better, or, you know, you feel better. I think the drive thing is amazing. I did that like 2 days ago. Cause again, I hadn't really, no, maybe it wasn't 2 days. The days are blending. I know. I was like, I honestly cannot tell you anymore, but it felt so good. Because I mean, we're very fortunate where we are now, that it's been beautiful. And I was like, oh, I feel like I'm outside. I had the windows down, the music up, and I was like, this is amazing. And it was literally like a 10-minute loop. Like it wasn't like I went on a long drive. And then I came home and I was like, okay, I'm ready to work again. And it was just enough to feel like I'm not imprisoned in my home.
I think the big, like you're talking about the high achievers that you work with and entrepreneurs, I think it's just super important to not push so hard all day, because I've seen myself do that throughout these third week we're in. I don't even know what we're in anymore, but you know, you have a really good day and you pushed really hard, but then the next day you feel awful. It's like a mental hangover.
Yes.
So I'm really trying to do a better job of balance and just, you know,
thank you.
Yeah. Push, you know, like drop things throughout the week versus just like go 90 miles, because it's easy at home right now. Like we're doing the same thing. We're up in our videos, we're up in our podcasts, we're doing all these, you know, different things that don't pay us, right? Like technically it's $0, like as far as, you know, we're an event space, you know, we aren't having events right now. So I think that balance and making yourself do things during the day to relax and rest and just zone out, like you said, or whatever, is super important. And I need to take better advice myself of doing that much more.
And, you know, and I think the hard thing is, this goes back to, I always say, like, knowing yourself. Because on one hand, we know that if you actually did, like, let's say 4 hours of focused work where you really were focused, you can get an immense amount of stuff done.
Yeah.
And there's this principle, I think is it Pareto's principle? The work expands to fill the time allotted. So if you say to yourself, I have 3 hours to do these things, it'll take 3 hours. If you say it'll take me 2 days to do that, it's going to take 2 days. Like, it's whatever you decide.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm trying to get better about that as well. At the same time, I know that I'm one of those people, if I would rather do 2 longer days and do a hard push and then have extra days off, because that's how my energy kind of goes. And so like even my work week that I've been definitely upping it. So I take the weekends completely off unless there's like an emergency, being in therapy, there sometimes are. And unless there's something like that, but then on Mondays and Fridays, I'm doing kind of like really light days where the expectation is, like I'm doing a video, but that might be, a little bit extra beyond that, but not much. And so like I might be 2 hours, maybe 3 hours of work max. And then the rest is like, okay, let me take care of like some home stuff, like cleaning up or cooking or whatever. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are my longer days. And so in those days, I'm expecting way less of myself in the home as far as, like having to take care of kids or having to cook or something. Although I did kind of screw that up when I meal planned, because last night I was like, oh, I was supposed to have cooked a ham tonight. And I was like, well, clearly that's not going to happen. I don't know what I was thinking. My days are off. But yeah, so it was, it's like one of those things, like I think we're learning every week. We just kind of have to adjust. But for me, I found that worked really well. It's like having 2 lighter days, 3 heavier days, and then 2 days completely off. Nice. I think you figure out what works for you.
Yeah, definitely. Sure.
But if you're home alone or even with one other person, I think the draw to work all the time is too heavy. So I would really encourage people to take more time off. To go outside.
That's what I was going to say. If you have a few tips for whoever is listening and watching this interviews to balance or to feel better about this whole situation and how to handle and cope with it. Because at least me personally, remember, I moved everything out of my house. And I already had it in my mind, like, this is not a workspace. And now all of a sudden it's a workspace again. And I'm like,
you didn't even have internet. She had to get internet.
Yeah, I had to get internet. I didn't even have internet because I fully removed everything from my house and I had to reset everything up. Somewhat because it's still kind of,
How do you not have internet? That's like saying, I just got rid of like electricity.
I know.
Because I didn't need to, because I had internet in the phone and iPad and that's it. And I wasn't working. So.
Okay.
But yeah, so I had to reestablish myself. But yeah, what would you tell people, on, a few tips that they can do to kind of feel better?
Yeah, I think it is about learning to take breaks, kind of forcing yourself, like, because even if they're small, it does give your brain just kind of a break from, what you're doing. And I think we're all probably at our computers way too much now.
Oh,
I know for
more
us
than before.
Yeah, because I had moved across the country, I had already transitioned to online, like therapy or coaching or working with people virtually. But I love working in person. And so my company, I own a practice back in California that still sees people, and I have a few therapists that work for me. So they all had to make the transition and it was hard, right? So I guess it's like you have to be aware that like all of a sudden you're online all the time. And even I've been doing a lot of like virtual cocktail hours or coffee dates or whatever. And it's so great because like as an extrovert, I need to talk to people, but it's still more time that I'm sitting here online looking at a computer and it's exhausting. So if you feel extra tired, it's not just you. This is being in a computer and stuck in this mode. So I think changing it up, like I don't eat a meal at my desk. Like I get up and I go and I sit down at the table and have my meal, and so like, I think like little ways like that, you just have to kind of realize you need those breaks, and actually you'll be much more productive if you do that.
Right.
I do think getting outside, and I really was advocating that. So that's why yesterday I was like, okay, I'm not practicing what I preach, for those couple of days. But before that, I was making sure like, okay, let's go on a walk. And we took like a walk around our neighborhood, the whole family, or I would just sit on the front porch or just kind of I even in my pajamas, walk down to the end of the street and back. I was like, I don't care. Standards are falling. I don't care. Like this, I was like, if I had to expect myself to get dressed to go take that walk, I won't do it. So I'm just going to take it. I mean, don't people do that at Walmart anyway? So
I don't think they're judging right now anyway. No. So we can get away with it now. It's the time.
Exactly. I was like, yes, this is the time. So yeah, I think being aware of that, I think taking the breaks, connecting with people, trying to connect with people. And I think through video, so whether they're doing that via Google Meet or Hangouts or, Zoom or whatever it is, being able to see people face to face is so good. The second best option would be on the phone. And I've heard from people who are actually having phone conversations, and they said they haven't had phone conversations in years.
Forever,
because it's hearing that voice. And then I've been utilizing things like Marco Polo and Boxer, which are two great apps where you can connect with people who are in different time zones a little bit easier. So you don't have to coordinate like a time, but you can be like messaging back and forth. And
it's like a walkie-talkie,
Boxer's like a walkie-talkie. So you can, and you can also do emojis and text and all of that, but you get to leave voice memos. And you can hear it real time. So it's like you can have a real conversation, but it also like they can get it later and then they can respond. Marco Polo does video. So it's the same thing, but with video. So it's, that's been, I think those kinds of things. I think connection is super important, and then taking breaks. So that would probably be my advice for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for talking to us. You see, we hit the 20-minute mark.
Oh, really? I thought we were going to talk about transitioning our business online. I was like, we could go for like 10 more minutes. Come on.
We could, but we're not doing that. We're keeping it sweet and short and helpful. Thank you for being with us. And
we'll have you on again, and we'll talk more about the nitty gritties of.
There you go. We can do another one. How did you do it?
Part 2. See?
Part 2.
I just make it. I make you feel like everyone needs to do a 2-part cast.
We want more of you, Amber. We want more. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you.